Yeah, okay. Hello. We're just starting a bit early because we just wanted to check that we were all working okay. So I don't know if anybody is there. I'll chit chat a little bit until we can see. I don't know if Adam, you can see any comments. Yeah. I don't know if Steffi is there. We are anyway. Well, welcome. My name is Charlotte Flower, and I have a small chocolate business, Charlotte Flower Chocolates, that I've been running for over 10 years. And Adam, I don't know if you'd like to sweep around and have a look at where we are, countryside around us. But this is sort of my inspiration. This is where I live, and this is my larder. So I started to make chocolates because I wanted to see whether we could use wild flavors and create delicious chocolate nibbles with wild flavors. So I've been doing that ever since. And so I'm either in the workshop making chocolates or I'm here gathering flavors for chocolates. So here we are. This is one of my favorite autumnal spots. And we're just above the Crannog down in Loch Tay. And there's a lovely series of hazel trees up here and sloe thickets. And it's a great place in autumn to come to pick hazels and sloes. So that's what we're going to do today. And I'll show you a little bit what we do. And it's beautifully sunny today. So my husband Adam is very kindly filming us. And with the sun on the screen, it's quite difficult for him to see comments. So can you see comments? Oh, he says you can see comments. So he'll read them out as best he can. We're also incredibly uneven ground. And if we fall about like drunken sailors, it's because we've fallen into a hole of some sort. So bear with us. It might be a bit of a rocky ride. So what I do, wild flavors. We follow the seasons all through the year. And autumn is just so generous to us. We have berries and nuts and a few other things that I've been trying this year as well. So we start off with wild garlic in the spring. I've got some overwintered flavors that I keep in the store, like juniper and hogweed seed and some winter herbs, wild garlic, and the spring blossoms like the sloe blossom and the rowan blossom and all sorts of things like that. And then we have some lovely herbs like mint and whatever coming through in early summer and flowers of all sorts. We just keep going really. And now we're in that season of mellow fruitfulness and we have berries of all sorts, elderberries, blaeberries we had a month or two ago, blackberries, I'm trying barberries this year for the first time and rose hip as well for the first time. So, but I'll introduce you to a few new things. But first of all, let's start with the hazels. Because hazels are extraordinary trees, lovely, multi-stemmed. They are productive in all sorts of ways. They were really important trees to our ancestors for both charcoal and building material and food. And whenever I'm picking hazelnuts up here, I think of the people in the Crannogs that used to live on Loch Tay. They found hazelnuts at the Crannog. So 2,500 years ago, people were up here picking the predecessors of these trees for their winter stores. Really, really important food. Right. So, but you have to get your eye in to find hazels, because if you just look at the tree, I don't know if Adam, if you just want to span over the tree, you think, where are they? And it's not a particularly good year for them this year. And we're a little bit late. The squirrels have probably come along before us, but you get your eye in and you start to see one or two. I've just spotted one in here. There's a lovely trio of nuts. Not quite ripe yet. I'm not sure I would pick those. I'll just leave those for another week and hope the squirrels don't find them tucked in under those leaves. Just leave them like that. So I've picked a couple earlier and you can see they're starting to brown. I've cracked one open and look at that beautiful nut. And that is gorgeous. It's full up I'm going to have a wee. When they're white and fresh like this, they're really crunchy and creamy. Oh, that's so good. So I thoughtfully bought a nutcracker with me, and here's one for Adam. So a lot of picking. Takes a long time to rustle through these trees and find them. And then we sort them, and then we have to crack them. So there's a lot of work in them, but they do store really, really well. And so I pick as many as, and we keep them over the year because I can use them throughout the year, and they do store really, really well. I use them in two ways, maybe three now. One is I use them in my ganaches, and I roast them and chop them and put them in with a honey ganache, which is one of my lovely autumnal staples. And it's like a very, 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 very. And then we also do gianduja, which is grinding it into chocolate, and it makes the most extraordinary sort of sweetmeat, which you can slice, eat really thinly. It's delicious. So we're going to be doing more of that this year. And we roast and just sprinkle on. We did a lovely, we had a few wild raspberries left that we dried, and we sprinkled them with wild hazelnuts onto a delicious chocolate. So whenever we find something, think about how we're going to use it. Can we use it in a ganache? Can we use it to flavor chocolate? We've started to grind flavors into chocolate, which is really interesting. And I can show you an example of that. So I brought a few things with me. So here, one of the things we have been doing is, here we go, picking juniper. Lovely juniper berries. Not from here, from further down the valley where there's a lovely juniper stand. Junipers are really hard to find, and they have this, they take 2 years to ripen. So the little green ones are the first year, and then the black ones are this year. Sorry, this way. So berries. Devil to pick because the bushes aren't they, Adam? Adam and I were picking last week, and the bushes are spiky, and the berries are right next to the stem, so you have to get in there between the spikes to pick them. There weren't that many black ones this year, but loads of greens. So I think next year is going to be really good. So what I've done is I've ground those into chocolate. You can't see them in this chocolate because I've ground them with stone grinders until they're absolutely part of the chocolate. And this is a milk chocolate with the juniper ground in. And here you go, Adam, tell me what you think of that. So these are what I call my grindings, those little wild bars. Which
Mother's ruined chocolate.
Mother's ruined chocolate. So it has just enough of the juniper, I think, to brighten up the chocolate. But you've still got lots of, this is a Madagascan chocolate. So we'll be doing more and more of these bars, finding ways of grinding things into these little bars of chocolate. So they're micro batches. We don't have them all year round, but I'm really enjoying that because we're pairing them with different chocolates. I've got a whole library of different couvertures that have collated over the years, always on the lookout for more delicious, more ethical, more scrumptious, more artisan chocolate all the time. And so I collect chocolates, and then I've always got a lot to find the right pairing with. Okay, shall we move over to sloes? Because I've got a bit of a worry about sloes this year. These ones look okay, but actually these ones are okay. They've not been great this year. They were fabulous last year, and actually last year the branches were just covered in sloes. They looked like grapes or olives or something. They were extraordinary. But these aren't quite so as bad as I thought they would be. Lovely little berries. They look so scrumptious, but if you like a little baby plum, you can see the flesh in there. incredibly sour, really, really sour. And and they're delicious, obviously, in sloe gin and whatever. But they do make gorgeous jellies. And I make with these ones for the chocolates. What I do is I make an old-fashioned cheese, which is like a really solid jelly, and we cut little slices of that and put that into a ganache-filled chocolate, and do either flavour the ganache with the jelly or just find a really delicious chocolate that we think matches it. And so you get that piquancy and that delicious richness taste of sloe, but with a lovely balance of some delicious fruity chocolate ganache. So that's what we do with the sloes. And I make a little bit of sloe gin as well on the side, which I might flavour the ganache with, especially at Christmas.
Seems to be a gin theme coming out of this.
Well, only with the sloes. I don't do a huge amount with alcohol, but actually at Christmas, I realised that my Christmas selection were a bit alcohol based. I do a amaretto one, and I do the sloe gin one, and I do port and Stilton. So this year I thought I'd try and make a wild equivalent to amaretto. So I've used rowan buds. So the young buds on the rowan trees have got the most amazing bitter almond flavour. So I've flavoured sort of vodka and sherry mix, to just like a fortified sherry with these, and that's what I'll try and use as the amaretto this year in my amaretto chocolate. So that I've got a little bit of wild in there as well. So yeah, so being creative all the time, thinking of new ways of doing things is part of it, and part of the fun. So those are the sloes. At the bottom, as we came up the hill, I'll show you a couple of new flavours for this year. This is pineapple weed, which is, you'll recognise this. It grows on the edges of tracks and paths. It likes really, it thrives in really downtrodden places, and it's very low growing, and often you don't really want to pick it because it's where people have been walking. But if you can find a spot that's away from that, it's got the smell of it, which unfortunately you can't get on here, is a combination of chamomile and pineapple, and hence its name, pineapple weed. And I've been making ganaches with this late summer, which has been gorgeous, and the smell of it is lovely. So that's a winner. We know what to do with that one. And then I picked this on the way up, and this isn't a particularly good example of it. This is round-leaved plantain, and this is a very small sample of it. I have picked spikes of these seeds which are this long, and the leaves are this big, but what we could find at the bottom of the hill, it's a pretty woe-begotten place at the bottom of the hill as you come up into this field, is this. But these seeds on here, I'm told reliably that you can use these as an egg substitute by soaking them in water, the way that you would use chia seeds, I think, for vegan cake making. And they give that sort of jelly, gelatinous gooiness that you can use in making cakes. I don't know, I haven't tried it. But what I have done is I've picked them and I've slightly dried them in the dehydrator just to make sure that they can be stored. And the smell coming from the dehydrator and from the seeds as we peel them off is like Ovaltine. It's really malty and delicious. So I'm thinking I might just sprinkle them onto, find a chocolate that goes with them and just sprinkle them onto shards, which would be again just a small micro batch treat. But I'm quite excited about those because they don't look much, but they are surprisingly. That's a new one coming up, which we'll try. What else did I bring with me to show you? Oh, mushrooms. Yes, thanks, Adam. So that's not mushrooms. Leathers, fruit leathers. That's the other thing we're getting into. That's not mushrooms. Where are the mushrooms in the blue?
Scenery while we're waiting.
Yes, that's a good idea. We could go and talk about the hawthorns in a minute. They're jolly. Right, mushrooms. So, every forager's delight. The chanterelles. These were picked yesterday, I think, the day before, and they have dried up a little bit. Lovely little chanterelles, and then these have been dried in the dehydrator, and you can see they just shrink away to very little. These store remarkably well in a airtight jar. You can use them in soups over the year. They're great. If they're still crisp, they're delicious. They're like, what do you call them, Adam? It's the only way you like mushrooms, isn't it? This dehydrated crisp. That they're really tasty. And last year for the Wild Food Festival, we had dipped them in a delicious Vietnamese chocolate and had them coated in chocolate. But I've also ground them into chocolate, and that gives a gorgeous sort of autumnal edge to a delicious dark chocolate, which we combined last year with beech nut, and I called it Autumn Gold because it was that sort of lovely. It was just like walking through a woods at this time of year. Lovely smell of what is it called? You know, the forest floor, humus. Yeah. So that's the mushrooms. And what the other thing I wanted to show you was, yes. So this is our year of the leather. We've worked out, with the help of lots of expert people on the internet, how to make fruit leathers with the dehydrator. And this is an elderberry leather. So I don't know if you can see, it's a really thin, you basically pulp elderberries, cook them, sieve them, pulp them, and taking out the skins and the seeds, and then lay it in a I don't know, about 3 or 4 millimeters deep into the dehydrator. And so I'm not having to boil it down like you do with when you're making jams or jellies. You boil the water out of it. This way we're just gently evaporating the water out of it, and you're left with, so you don't need so much sugar and it doesn't need so much cooking. So you get the freshest, most delicious flavor of the berry. And we've been really enjoying this. So we've done blaeberries and raspberries, blackcurrant, delicious, delicious, delicious. They all are. And this box, we've got plum. So what we've done, so this is the plum leather, which is a gorgeous sort of pink plum color. And then we've dipped it, pared it and dipped it in chocolate. So this is the final product. This is what we sell. So and when we break it open, you can see inside, and if you can see inside is the plum leather, and then it's chocolate-tree. Is that good?
That is good.
It is good, isn't it? Chocolate-tree Peruvian 70%. So we tried about 5 or 6 different
Very
chocolates
good.
before we had to try 5 or 6 different chocolates before we found one we thought went with the plum. And so it's nice and chewy. It's like a chocolate coated chew, isn't it? I don't know how you describe it really. But the plum leather has this intense tart plum flavour, and the chocolate, not too much chocolate, but it's a lovely combination. So we're really enjoying playing around with these a lot. So I'll make an elderberry one. I'm trying with experimenting with barberries, which I've never used before. Found some barberries on a track. Look, should really try things like hawthorns and rowans as well. I've historically not really ever made much with them, but we have a few. Oh, that's so good, isn't it? Makes the mouth water. So if we just pop down here, how are we doing time-wise, Adam? Okay. Yeah, so hawthorn, there you go. Hawthorn berries, which are most fantastic colour, aren't they? But I've just never really tried very much with them. I think I tried making hawthorn ketchup about 30 years ago and probably burnt it, and it wasn't very nice. So I've been put off them, but there's not much flavour to them. And they've got a huge stone in the middle of them.
Rosy apple.
Yeah, quite nice actually, aren't they? It's like chewing on the, the apple. You eat the core of the apple, and then the stem.
That's sustainable eating. You eat the tree as well.
Yeah, I eat the whole thing. It tastes like the stem of the apple, which doesn't sound great, but actually is really delicious. So I might change my mind and try something with hawthorns. This tree is also covered with lichen, and I'm really fascinated by lichen and would love to know more about using it in a culinary way. There's a Norwegian chocolate maker who uses, they call it reindeer moss, but is a lichen. And they're very complex, hugely fascinating. They're not plants either, are they? What are they, Adam? Yes, I think so. So they're their own class of being, really. And they're incredibly, what's the word, indigestible. But I would love to try, because the smell of them sometimes I think would be quite interesting to add chocolate. And I've tried this Norwegian one, and it's just got a few little bits of lichen sprinkled onto the chocolate. So it's not overly strong, but I think it would be interesting to try it. But I don't know enough about them. So if anybody out there knows more about lichens, please get in touch. Yes, please. That would be great. So are there any questions? I've rattled on. All right. Okay. We could just have a mindful moment. I have to say, when you're up here and foraging and looking for, looking through the hazel trees for the hazels or the sloes for the sloes, and you look up and you're here. It's a beautiful place to be and a lovely way to spend an hour or two, just focused on gathering. And as I said earlier, I do feel that we'll be a bit connected to people who came here before, because gathering, especially things like nuts, would have been such an important part of their annual food security. And we don't have many really good nuts, and hazels are definitely throughout this part of Scotland would have been very important.
We have a question.
Okay.
An 18-month-old who wants to pick everything. What's the best thing for him to munch along?
Oh, and oh my goodness, 18 months. Wow, that's really impressive. Yeah, just be careful, really. Sorrel is lovely, if you know sorrel. It's quite tart, not to have too much of it, just a few leaves.
Lemony.
Very lemony. I'm just trying to see, there's usually quite a lot of sorrel up here. Oh yeah, that's a nice example of sorrel. There we go. That's the sorrel. Really nice.
Really nice in salads as well.
Really nice in salads, and you can cook it. I have made chocolates with it, but it does tend to sort of disintegrate when you cook it. But it has oxalic acid in it, which you have to be careful not to eat too much of.
So it's a good sort of mouthwaterer.
It's a good mouthwaterer. Yep. That's a nice one. What else could you eat? Quite a lot of leaves are edible, but just not tasty. That's always the problem, is the balance between edibility and taste. And I'm tending to look for leaves that are aromatic. So little what are the sort of leaves I nibble as I go along? But I've always nibbled, and I don't know what grasses are what, but the very of the grass, nice to nibble.
Where the sugar is.
Where the sugar is. And they're tasty. Oh, this is such a good question. Completely thrown me. I mean, these are supposed to be really lovely. Hawthorn leaves, and in the spring they're a bit tough by this time of the year. But in the spring, this was when they're soft and tender, a lot of leaves. So lime leaves, beech leaves, these leaves, they're birch leaves. When they're young and tender, they're really tasty, seemingly. And this we used to call bread and butter because people used to munch it as they walked along the road. So, but
the nice one was in the spring was the round buds.
The round buds. But they're that's the bitter almondy flavour. Actually, they're still quite tasty, but a bit coarse. I think an 18-month-old might struggle a bit with that. Yeah. Blackberries are brilliant at the moment. So yeah, go for those. If you can do. We don't find particularly good blackberries in this area. Yeah.
Lots of wild raspberries.
And lots of wild raspberries, but they're over as well. Good question. Floored me. If you can't dip it in chocolate, I clearly don't pick it, do I? But anyway. What sort of things? Quite a lot of the leaves and things are quite coarse, so I don't know if an 18-month-old would struggle. Some, and then of course there are the sort of prickly things. But actually, we're surrounded by thistles, and I'm not sure if it's these thistles, but you can. Obviously, you wouldn't get your 18-month-old to do this, but if you did it, if you pick the stem, peel off the outside of it, you've got this really delicious, sort of cucumbery centre, which is quite crisp and lovely. And then the other thing that is great to munch is to just munch and suck is cleavers, goosegrass. Surprisingly tasty. I know it doesn't sound it, but when it's young, not now, but when it's young, it's very, very tasty to sort of suck on. So I don't know if that's any use.
Where can we buy your lovely chocolate?
Well, I haven't mentioned that. No, I haven't mentioned that. On my website, which is charlotteflowerchocolates.com, there's a link to an online shop, or just phone me up or email me. So I'm doing mainly online sales. There's very few places that the chocolates are sold in. So it's mainly online. I do Perth Farmers Market. We'll be doing that again from October through the winter. I only do them in the winter. And Aberfeldy Farmers Market, the last Farmers Market, the first weekend in October. Other than that, it's online. But we post all over the UK. And that's how you buy them. Is that, are we run out of time?
Yeah.
A few more minutes. Any more questions?
Look at the view again.
Yeah, just look at the view. It's much nicer than listening to me. And hear the stream. I think it's a bit shallow. You can see where I swam this morning. Up here. Whoa. See where the little sticks are, the old jetty is and the boat. Beautiful. Okay. And the lights are amazing. Okay. I think that's probably. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed a little forage with us, and I'm doing foraging walks if you're ever in this area. I'm foraging and chocolate nibbling walks. So you come and forage and chocolate nibble with me. I'm not doing workshops at the moment because of COVID. But yeah, so if you're ever in the area, do get in touch if you'd like to come foraging with me. That would be good. You'll be outside and perfectly safe. Yeah, I'm very happy to have family groups and children. Thank you very much. And see you. Oh, I must say, the other thing is, I completely forgot. My chocolates are available to Meadows, Castle, Hillin, and Pitlochry Neighbourhood Market.